What's going on? I'm super active today, guys. I had a slow day at work, and basically, I am going to take a look at QCOM. We can definitely have some bullish cases here. Looking at this on a weekly time frame, it could look a little bit scary, but I'm also going to talk about some potential bullish scenarios here, depending on how this is going to play out. Now, from a very, very bearish perspective, we can see that the weekly momentum is slowing down a lot. You can see we're potentially going to get a weekly MACD cross, and you can see the RSI is obviously pointing to the downside. We could almost make a case that this is a small head and shoulders pattern here. And there's some important levels here on the RSI to keep an eye out for, of course, but for now, we want to take a look at some smaller term time frames and see if we can see anything, a little more bullish forming, or if we just need to back the hell off and be very scared here. So, let me start with the bearish stuff, and then we'll work our way to the bullish case scenarios here. Obviously, from a bearish, very, very bearish perspective here, we can just pretty much go off of these three wicks here, which can show us something that could be a little bit more scary, which could be that this could be some kind of rising channel that could break us to the downside. I almost want to move this up a little bit just for the fact of those few wicks that we saw. I would say that this was a fake out here. No weekly candle closed below. But we can see how important this lower trend line has been. 123, we bounced off of it. 124.83, we bounced off of it. We rolled over, we broke it, bought back up, continued our run a little bit here. We came to this upper resistance here, which if I drew this across, pretty sure, I can even go, I want to stay on those two wicks over on the right there just to show how important it is. This here, we wicked up to it roughly at 144. And this is just strictly looking at candles here. And then, like I said, I'm trying to make this perfectly on the weekly so that it gives us a little better outlook on the daily and smaller time frames here. So if we brought this up here, here we go. So we have not broken this trend line here on the weekly yet. We haven't closed any candles below 138. We almost came down and tapped it here. We still have room to potentially come down lower. 140.84 is roughly that level. So, depending on how this plays out, whether we end up actually breaking to the downside and this whole bullish idea that I'm coming up with here is failed, that's going to be really, really based off of whether or not this level is going to get a candle body close below, because that's going to really prove the remainder of this trend, and if this trend's going to continue or break down. So that's just strictly based off of a pattern that I'm seeing, which could be a rising wedge that could break us down. Obviously, you see that now. So now flipping to the daily here, something we can see is that as of today, we pretty much, obviously this bottom trend line might not be perfect. So it's tough to say for sure if we're bouncing off that or not. But we can see on a bullish scenario that our EMA ribbon has flipped green here on the daily, which is a very good sign. We were in green this whole time we were in this uptrend, and we flipped red here when we lost the support, and then we came and broke it. We could not really close above this EMA ribbon here. We kept rejecting by it. We came back up in it eventually here from this recent low of 123. We bought all the way back up in it. We hit the same resistance here we've been hitting 3 times now. 3 points of interest is very, very good confirmation. And then now we're potentially creating what looks to be potentially a falling wedge of some sort. It's hard to draw that bottom trend line because I see a lot of wicks, but we can definitely make a case that we have potentially, it could be even a symmetrical triangle, based off of this lower support line here, which could get us a bullish break which might bring us back to the top here. It could even bring us above that upper trend line, but we'll have to see. If we were to get a break here, the actual target would be 159.60, with the expectation that this upper trend line will continue to act as resistance, which would bring us up to 156.73. That would be to the exact penny. So obviously, if you're making a swing trade, you want to get yourself above it. And then our resistance right now is roughly around 147. So we'd want to see ourselves getting above and holding above 147 here. Another thing we can see pretty clearly here would be, excuse me, would be this area right here at 147, which that comes in pretty solid right here, which we can actually change that color red just to show ourselves our resistance. We could drop it a little bit lower here to touch this wick, but I kind of want to look at it like this. You could go, if you want to get like super exact, you can go by these candle bodies down here. That might give us a little bit better look, just for the fact of, even we touched it a couple times here on a wick. We bought all the way back up here. We closed above it here, which is roughly 145.80. We didn't close any candle bodies below. We had a nice bounce off it, and then when we came back down to back test it, we completely lost it, started closing below, and then we came up. We pretty much wicked up to it roughly 145.50 to 146. Roughly. And then same thing here. We came above. We couldn't hold it as support. We closed right on it. The following candle was a rejection, and then we lost it. So we could use that level as an area to watch, and we want to see a nice flat daily candle close above it, and maybe see the following candle also close above it here too, to have a little more confirmation. So as we're flipping green on the ribbon, EMA ribbon, we can take a look at the Ichimoku cloud and see what's going on. And I'm going to remove this red line so we can actually see what's happening here. And this is on a daily time frame. So it took a lot of momentum for us to get from all the way down here to all the way up here. So it makes sense if we were to get into some kind of corrective stage here, just because we need a cool off, because it took a lot of buying pressure to get up into this range. Now what we're seeing here is that potentially we still have a decent amount of support here in this range, but we don't want to lose that range. So this kind of actually lines up pretty damn good with this cloud cloud support, which could turn into support here. We'll have to keep an eye on it. And if we were to actually get this bullish price action here, then we could maybe make a case that we could see some kind of double bottom come in here. Of course, with that weekly momentum running out, we have to be a little more cautious, but this is something to keep our eyes on. Obviously, a rising channel is a bearish pattern, but it doesn't have to just break down right now. We don't have to just completely lose it unless the market's going to shit itself. So we can still expect that it could come back up for another touch here, which might be the last touch. We don't know for sure. We'll have to watch this area, and then if we do get a rejection here, we'll have to watch our support again here. But once you find a channel, you can usually play it pretty damn well. We just have to keep an eye on a weekly close below the trend line, or a couple weekly closes above the trend line. So that's based off of our daily time frame here on the Ichimoku cloud. You can see we were holding above this red resistance, which was once resistance and turned into support for a little bit, and then once we went sideways long enough, we kind of rolled down it here. So we want to see ourselves holding down here. Now if we had a big wick below that ended up faking out and didn't close back, you can go as low as 137, but as of right now, our trend line is roughly around this 140 to 141.50 range on the daily. Not even looking at the MACD. Now if we look at the 4 hour here, what do we see? We see that we're inside our green cloud, which isn't a bad thing, because the green cloud almost acts as a nice cloud, right? A cloud comfort zone potentially. So We haven't been able to close above our cloud here, which we want to see we want to see us do, which would be roughly in that 145 range. Probably lines up pretty damn closely with our red trend line we drew a little bit ago. If you guys remember, it was right around that 145, 146 range. But as of right now on the 4-hour time frame, we are pretty much testing this roughly support of 141.89. So, like I said, we could still see a little more chop in here, but we definitely want to see ourselves holding, we definitely want to see ourselves holding this support. So that's something to keep our eyes on here. As we touch here, we could find support, and we could get a nice bullish break. So let's just consider this area here, and we have support here roughly around 142 to, like I said, 141.70, and then we have our resistance up here as of right now roughly around 144.44, which you can always wick above and get rejected and come back in. You need to see candle bodies closing above. Go down to the 3-hour time frame. Roughly it's all of this resistance is roughly in between this 144 range. So this is something that we want to watch carefully. Obviously, as you get into the lower time frames, we can see we're further and further away from our support, but we're starting to make a little, potentially another rising wedge of some sort, which can definitely turn into something beautiful. We can see right here we had what looked almost like a small rising wedge, or maybe an ascending triangle of some sort that ended up getting built. And then we ended up having a very nice lift off, and if we pulled this all the way across here, we would see what happened. We had this as resistance, we ripped up, we got resistance here on this Ichimoku cloud, and then we fell and rolled down, and then we started back testing this support, and then we got a nice rip. We came above this resistance. That was great. We back tested it a little bit with a few wicks below, but never closed any candle bodies below. We touched our normal rejection area. We came back down, and then we lost this support here, old previous support and previous resistance, roughly around that 144.44. And then what are we doing now? Well, it's tough to make a case for any type of pattern really, because this is just a 1-hour time frame. But maybe some kind of rising wedge, or maybe it'll turn into something better. Tough to say for now. We're obviously getting resistance at this 143.09. We can even look at these two wicks right here, draw this trend line across, and look at what we're doing here. We're attempting to get back above it. So we could leave that there just for a small case here. If we can start closing, an hourly or a couple hourly candles here today above this 143.23, this could be a start of something. We still have to keep an eye on this 144.44 level, but maybe this is a small ascending triangle. Right now, it's kind of looking more like a rising channel or something. So you gotta take that with a grain of salt, but is this starting to try to set up? It's possible, but it's also possible that this could turn into some kind of head and shoulders. If we did get a rip back up and rejected once again by this cloud, that might be the end of our trend, depending on how it plays out. Or we could get resistance here, come down double bottom. There's all these different things that you can draw out depending on if you're bullish or bearish. So you kind of just have to wait for it to play out here. So that's just kind of, hopefully this is all helpful to you guys. I mean, I'd appreciate if you could hit the like button, maybe subscribe if you're not subscribed. And, hopefully this is all, soaking in. And, if you guys are interested in this Ichimoku cloud here, this is an excellent indicator. You can use the stock settings, but just so you know, I changed my input based off of one of my favorite analysts. And, this is how he sets his up, so I decided to change mine. And, I did 20, 60, 120, 30. If you guys are going to do the Ichimoku cloud and you want to change your settings, that's what I'm using right now. And let's just keep an eye on how this ends up playing out here. Like I said, you really, when you're in this type of consolidation and patterns and stuff, if you're trying to trade, you don't really want to trade in here unless you're only making a swing from maybe here to here, or a dollar swing or whatever you're doing. But in reality, if you want the big money, then you might want to wait for something like this to form, whether it looks something like that, whether we flag out here and then get a break to the upside. I mean, there's many scenarios, but you'll have to chart it once you see yourself maybe retesting this area here of what I'm looking at as our pretty clear downward sloping resistance, which if we put a price target on there, depending on when we hit it, it could change. But like I've said in the past, we're looking at roughly around this 147, 148. You could probably make a trade above 148.30. And that should look like some pretty clear, a pretty clear entry point. But yeah, so as long as we don't close any candles below really that 139, we should be all right. But watch the weekly candles. Never close like a big trade until you see a weekly candle closing as resistance, and then you can just say, all right, I got to cut my losses. This is clearly a break, because there's many fake wicks and all that shake people out. I mean, look at here. You would have been shaken out, and then you would have lost out on all this shit. If you were in here, this is just the last thing I'm going to say. If you were in here at 124, you wrote it up, you said, damn, I should have sold this up here. It came back down, it started breaking out. You said, oh, fuck, I'm below my average. I'm out of this thing. You left, and then look what happened ever since. It continued rising here. So, same here. Oh, shit, I should have sold here. We're all the way down here. Just watch the weekly, guys. That's what I'm saying. If you're in like a trade and you want to swing it for a while, you got to see a weekly candle close below in order to confirm anything here. Even if you just look at this, lastly, I know I said the last thing before. You look here. Say you entered this trade down here at 140, and you saw all this price action. I'm just going to draw it like half-assed here. You saw all this price action. It ran all the way up to 160, 170, and then and then it came back down here to 150s, and you were like, oh no, I don't know what's going on here. You look at the weekly here. Now look at this. You have your candle closed right here, 152. It wicks all the way back down to your entry price here. Maybe you had your stop at break even, but you could have at least exited right here. If that's all you were using and you weren't using indicators, then you could have probably said that. If you were using Ichimoku Cloud, you would have seen some of this action here. Oh, we closed below here. I'm going to exit my trade here. Enter a short maybe. There's so many different ways. And this is all on a weekly. I mean, the daily is probably going to show you even clearer what's going on. And look right here. Same deal. You lost your ribbon over here in the 147s. You lost all the support here of the cloud here at 153. That could have been first clear sign would have been this daily close right here. 152, you would have exited with a little bit of profit. Even in the smaller time frames, it's going to show even clearer, and that's why I use smaller time frames to decipher if I want to do something. But you can see all this resistance of this EMA. That's pretty clear right there. If you wanted to exit on a shorter time frame, there's many things you can do. But all right, guys, hopefully this is all helpful. I know I rambled a lot, but that's what I'm seeing in the charts, and I'm just kind of waiting to see, are we going to be able to get back above this range here of 144? Are we going to be able to close on it? It doesn't look like much resistance above there until that 147. And, mainly the biggest trade would be somewhere up in this 148 level. You should see a pretty good spike, even if it back tests first and runs. This should be a pretty solid trade somewhere up in here to run it up into this 156 area. If we even get there. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing nothing. It could break down here tomorrow and you guys could all hate me, but this isn't financial advice. Do your own research. Do your own TA. Peace.